So my theory also is, and again, research needs to be done about that, if there is a supportive teaching, if there is supporting ballet management and artistic directors, then people won't be pushed to beyond their extreme, their capabilities,
Absolutely.
going over and over and over again, and then injuring themselves because they're tired. So they would have longer careers. And you're going to get better performers who are performing, not doing what they're meant to do in a robotic way.
So great to talk to you again, Terry.
Thank you. Yes, well, thank you for inviting me. I know I asked because of steps, but
yeah, absolutely. I'm always willing to talk to people to sort of raise awareness of the work that they are doing. And a lot, and I do see you on LinkedIn quite frequently, and you're doing amazing work. But talk to me about STEPS. What is the aim with STEPS?
I'm the founder and CEO of Steps, and that came from my own work in counselling for dancers. Although I know that your audience is mostly musicians, but I do treat
not necessarily. Not necessarily. I mean, it's all forms of art, really.
Okay. And STEPS is STEPPS, and it stands for support, training, education, psychotherapy, performance, solutions. So my wonderful wife came up with that. We were trying to think of a name that would form a nice word to do with dance as well. So steps formulated then. And that was a few years ago, and it's taken us a couple of years to actually launch. We've gathered in a number of trustees from different forms of dance. And I've gathered together also another 3 counsellors. So I'm a psychotherapist, there's another psychotherapist and 2 counsellors, all ex-dancers and 1 ex-director, musical theatre producer, that type of, but they're all fully trained, qualified counsellors and psychotherapists, so that for the dancers themselves, should they wish to have therapy, they know that we know what they've gone through.
Yes, I just wanted to say, all people, from within the art form.
Yes, well, this is what I wanted to do, because I'm 75 now, and I needed to expand, and I can't do it all myself. So I thought, well, let's have a charity, then we can bring in other people and expand what I'm doing also for the workshops, because I do workshops for academies and university degree courses, both in the UK and abroad. And I thought, I can't do this all by myself. So 2 of the counsellors who have already done different types of workshops and are performers themselves, they like performing, and that's what I do in the workshop. It's really a performance, but with all the knowledge that I've gained from either my training or from my performing career. In addition to that, and this is not what I was doing before with counselling for dancers, in addition to that, I've negotiated with a training organisation who solely does mental health first aid training. I've negotiated with them a really good discount. So anyone coming onto the STEPS website, and the website is steps.charity, that's STEPPS, steps.charity, that's all you need to put in. In the middle of next month, we will be giving a link to that organisation where you can get a 40% discount.
Wow, that's quite a big discount.
So people from outside of England, this is outside of England. So that includes Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Anyone outside of England and around the world can do the online courses, and still get the discount.
That's
So
wonderful.
it doesn't really matter whether you're a doubter or not. If you go through our website, you'll get the link and put the code in, which will be given on the promotional materials that are coming out on social media. So you'll be having to follow steps, CIO, it's called steps, CIO. That's the name of the, yes, both Facebook and Instagram
Oh,
are
okay.
Steps CIO. And on LinkedIn, it's got its own account, Steps
Okay.
that. So the link there from the website will get you a 40% discount.
But that's amazing. But you were saying now that not necessarily dancers, so it's open for, say, performers in
Yes,
type of
yeah, performing arts in
arts.
general.
Mm.
That'll be good. And what I'm organising, because London, the face-to-face centres in London are too expensive for them to give a discount. So it's too expensive, their overheads, to give us a discount.
Oh, I
So
see.
I'm organising either at the RAD, the Royal Academy of Dance in Battersea, or round behind them, BBO, which is the British Ballet Organisation, or, no, sorry, not or, and Pineapple Studios in Covent Garden.
Oh, okay. Mm.
So all three of them have said, yes, we'll give you a studio free for face-to-face training. And I thought that's brilliant, to be able to
Yes,
get
amazing.
these collaborations, and each of them are going to be publicising it themselves once we got that up and running. I just wanted to make sure that we've got the website link to Transpire Training is who they are. They're a big national organisation, not just a one-person one.
Okay.
So that those three organisations are going to be able to publicise and have a location in London to do the face-to-face training.
But Terry, mental health under dancers is so important, and also I don't think dancers always have a possibility to or know where to go. And recently, a lot of people have been speaking about that. And also, my daughter used to be a ballet dancer, and we also recently spoke a lot about that because she transitioned and she retired from the ballet world. So this is also something that I'm very interested in because I know the importance of it, even from a young age. I think even from when they start training.
Yes, I think singers, as in classical singers and musicians, is going to resonate with them as well. We, as dancers, were trained in fear. Fear of not being good enough, fear of getting things wrong, because we were continually, and I started ballet classes when I was 6 years old, we were continually being corrected. Now, it depends how the corrections are given. Now, if it's done in a supportive way and you're willing to learn in that supportive atmosphere, then that's great. But a lot of the teaching methods, and especially in ballet and in other performing arts forms, there's a thing. It's a tough life. You're going to have a tough career, so you're going to be tough now. You've got to push through, and this sort of pushing through pain and pushing through your emotions may make you a stronger person. But will you still be a human, or will you be a robot? And I heard a Russian teacher many years ago saying, we beat them down and then we build them up. Now, when you look at the Russian styles of ballet, they're beautiful aesthetically, but there's no soul there. And so technically they're like robots, but technically good, looking good, but there is no soul there. And a lot of people may argue that point. And so the idea of the training part and training and education in the steps is for me to do workshops for teachers to get them to understand, especially in the sessions I've done both for musicians, classical singers and dancers. And this includes ballroom as well, because it's very black and white thinking. You're either right or you're wrong. And the black and white thinking creates stronger neurodiverse traits. And are those people, I'm wondering, and I'd like to get some research done on this. So if there's any researchers out there, please contact me. Is it that we already had, includes me as well, strong neurodiverse traits, autism and ADHD mostly? And that's why we enjoy doing that same thing over and over again, daily class, etc. Practice over and over again. We're talking musicians, singers, doing exactly the same thing over and over again. And then you've got the dropout rate for those that perhaps don't like the practice over and over again, just want it to come like this. And so looking at that then creates a need for control. And so when situations are not the way that you thought they were going to be, like a timetable or casting on the casting board, it's changed of rehearsals. Oh, we can't do it then, we've got to do it then. So someone comes in already prepared who has strong neurodiverse traits, that then knocks them. Then anxiety comes in. And they start panicking. Oh, no, I thought I was doing this, and now I'm doing that. And what? And it needs to be for the teachers to understand these neurodiverse traits. There are also 3 different forms of learning styles. They need to understand the 3 different forms of learning styles. It's pointless, and I'm talking about dance now. It's pointless for a teacher who has their back to the class, looking in the mirror. And if it's a lot of people in class, a lot of people in rehearsals, to mouth what they need to do or just move their hands, because we used to move, well, we still do, move our hands when we're marking things. When there's a visual learner rather than an auditory learner or a kinesthetic learner. So those are the 3 main learning styles. And so when you look at that then creates anxiety because they can't learn quickly enough for the choreographer, for the teacher. And then panic comes in and then they get overload. So ADHD is really not attention deficit. It's attention overload. It's very badly named. And the overwhelm is needed to have a break. So when a person has an overload, there's no good shouting at them. Just say, well, you can go outside for 5 minutes, then come back in. And that's all they need. They just need a couple of minutes just to quieten down and then they'll come back in again. And so that's where the workshops for the teachers are happening. So the workshops that I've done for teachers so far, a lot of them have been either old school or taught by old school. That fear.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that sometimes that cycle, of the teacher and I, you sometimes would have heard that, because I did it this way, or we did it this way, or my teacher did this, so you just have to do it. I did it, so you just have to do it. So it's very much sometimes that cycle of repeating what they've learned to the new generation or the new class.
Then that's their fear of change. Humans, generally speaking, fear change. So when you have been programmed or brainwashed, whichever way you look at it, to do the old school method, and it's always worked, and etc., etc. All the reasons why there shouldn't be any change. That's not the reason. There needs to be a reason to change to allow more development. And I don't mean getting away from a classical style or anything like that. It's all down to learning. And when people are at ease and feel safe, they learn better, research has shown.
Yeah.
And that was for academic work. And something needs to be done about performing arts. So some research needs to be done about that. But you can just transfer that. It happens in athletics. They're changing their ways. I mean, there's been a lot of hoo-ha about gymnastics and the issues there with their training, abuse, either verbal abuse, sexual abuse, etc. It's no good shouting at someone, because then they react in fight and flight, and there's no freedom. So when you're talking about performing artists, there's no freedom in their style or anything like that, because they're in fear and they're in fight and flight. So the idea of a change from those, so that you get what you were saying, Petra, about the old school, either we've always done it this way, or I was taught that way and I'm going to teach mine this way. There is that change now of some of the teachers saying to me, I was taught that way and I would never teach my students again. That really undermined my own work. You know, I could have done something different or better or something like that, but I was pushing myself. I got injured. I had to give up a career. And so my theory also is, and again, research needs to be done about that, if there is a supportive teaching, if there is supporting ballet management and artistic directors, then people won't be pushed to beyond their extreme, their capabilities.
Absolutely.
Going over and over and over again, and then injuring themselves because they're tired. So they would have longer careers. And you're going to get better performers who are performing, not doing what they're meant to do in a robotic way.
Well, I think my daughter is now, after her career in ballet, she's studying dance science in Switzerland. Yeah, she's doing her master's degree, and they actually talked about this, and it's part of their study. This, repeating doesn't necessarily make it that you are better in it. And I think in Elmhurst now, at the ballet school, they've really changed their teaching methods. And I know I can't remember who his name is, but he's now also there working. And it's the same type of thing. It's changing the way the training goes, the science behind the training. And it's so needed, because it is, you have to understand the body, and you have to understand, like you say, the brain also, to be able to give these dancers the best possible training and opportunity.
There's an intrinsic link between the mind and the body. I'm not talking about the brain now, the mind and the body.
Yeah.
And the brain is needed. So it's not, the brain doesn't understand what is right and what is wrong, what is real and what is fantasy. So in my therapy sessions, and I've changed that now into, I'm adding that to coaching, where a dancer doesn't have to do anything. I use visualizations. Now that has come from research done, and I think it was in the 80s in America, for athletes. So they were wired up both to their brain and to their muscles. So the leg muscles and the muscles around the body. They would then, for example, visualize, as they were sitting there, visualize running the 100 meters. And what registered on the machines from the wiring up was that the brain was working, the muscles, and the muscles were working.
Really?
So yes, the athletes didn't have to move for the messages going down to the muscles, so that they were running without running. So my theory is that we use that in dance, in rehearsals, or when you're practicing in class. Instead of doing something over and over and over again and getting tired and perhaps injuring yourself, you just have to stand there with your eyes closed. If there's music, then fine. If not, you've got music in your head of whatever you're doing, and you go over and over and over that again. What I have added to that, which isn't in the research and is not done by the athletes or the dancers now, what I have added is the feeling that comes with doing it well.
Oh,
What does it feel like when you do 6 pirouettes? How exciting is that? So you add the excitement, mind, body, and feelings as emotions. So you add all three together. The brain then recognizes everything. It's like when I do my workshops or even in the one-to-one sessions, the first thing you should do in the morning, you don't have to open your eyes, is to smile. Because the muscles of a smile send a signal to the brain, and the brain says, you're happy, you're smiling. Let me give you some serotonin.
Mm.
And out comes the serotonin. The brain doesn't know it's not real. You don't have to smile and enjoy it. You just have to use the muscles. In the end, you will actually smile and enjoy it. And then you add the thought to it. Today is going to be a great day. Sorry. Today is going to be a great day.
Mm.
Did I say that? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
So you're adding a thought to the muscles and the emotions, everything. The brain then says, "Oh, okay," and then you start feeling, and everything will feel better. It doesn't mean that negative issues that arise during the day, that it always happens, but it's how you then deal with it, because you're in a different mindset, a different frame of mind that you've started off with the day. And also after that, you then do 10, 15-minute meditation. And I really advocate that you do a 10 to 15-minute meditation. Also in the workshops for the teachers, I advocate that the first class of the day should have at least a 5-minute breathing meditation. When I suggested that to one workshop that I did with teachers, but said, I like to hype up my class, really to get them going. I said, what's the first exercise of the day in ballet? And she said, pliés. I said, do you want them hyped up to do pliés? Surely that's a nice relaxing start to the lesson. She said, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, I see that now. And I said, you don't need to hype them up. You just need to get them to clear their minds with the breathing. So what you do is you count 4 breaths on each breath. You count 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4. And in fact, if you're musical, you say, and 1, and 2. There's 4, and then you reverse it. 4, 3, 2, 1. And you do that for 5 minutes with your eyes closed, just sitting. You don't have to sit in a lotus position. You don't have to hold the mudras or anything like that. Just sit and calm yourself. And that's your preparation for the day. And I use that suggestion also as a technique for pre-audition, pre-performance, just to calm you.
And that's something that, anybody, they can do. All the dancers can do. And if young students already learn this, it's something that they take with them and do that before a performance or, in stressful situations. So it's something so simple, but so effective.
It is, yes. And I think the simple things are more effective than the push and the drill and the sergeant major type of teaching methods.
But I'm also thinking now about when you talked about these things. There's a ballet master, Stéphane Dahl, in France, and he really does and he knows the floor bar and promotes the floor bar, and he's got so much success with that recently, and him himself, he's always done it. And I think it's also that idea where gravity is taken away, and I think that position where you do the floor bar, I wonder if that is also something that is different on the mind.
I suppose when you think about that, you can actually close your eyes and do a floor, because you're not
exactly.
going to feel orientated. You are there, and it could be a meditative movement, in a meditative state. So it was good. And when we were talking about change, what just came to mind about the floor bar, about PBT as well, working with the big ball. That's change. I wonder what those old school teachers are thinking about that.
Yeah.
And that helps. Cross training helps as well. But, in my day, and I've already told you how old I was, but so in my day, in the 60s, we would never do, I mean, we did weight training because of partnering, but we would never do the weight training that they do now, and turned in parallel. Oh, that's going to ruin our turnout, that sort of thing. And so these changes, it's an evolution. Hasn't done anything bad for the classical side of things at all. And there's the ballet companies are now doing a modern type of ballet in their performances. There is an evolution there.
Yeah, but I remember my daughter, she had an injury and she had to have rehab. And Zoom, at the time in London, there are sports scientists, and they trained her then, or they helped her with her rehab, and they made her do press ups and what do you call this? Squats with weights and
Yes.
and that type of thing. And when she returned to the company, everybody was commenting on her muscles and things. Not that she was overly bulked, but it was suddenly strange. It was not this very sort of skinny type of look. And she felt stronger in her dancing, and she felt also that prevented her from injury, this training and the not building muscle but strengthening the muscles.
Yes, it's a good way of getting an all-round body as well, and it also changes the way people think about themselves. So that also has to be careful. Body dysmorphia, etc. That creates a look. So I can't remember the lady's name that wrote this book called Thin, Thin, Thin. And it was talking about eating disorders, which is what I treat as well, and the body dysmorphia. So it's looking at your body in a certain way. So I have a number of clients with eating disorders and body dysmorphia, separately from those, and they won't look in the mirror, and then they wear baggy clothes. So there's a fear there as well of and a comparison. So when you're comparing, there is a fear behind it.
Yeah.
But I think the weight training, the Pilates, and all these added things that are being brought in are a very good thing, because it then doesn't differentiate between the very thin person and the overly muscle person. I mean, when they first started, they said, "Oh, you're going to build up too much muscle," and so there is this difference. But in between, there's a happy medium.
Exactly. Yeah.
But unfortunately, people don't go for happy mediums. Generally speaking, they do, but there's always going to be those extremes. I'm not good enough, so I've got to go and I've got to work out at the gym. I've got to go and do another class because I'm not good enough. So there's always going to be the extremes, and there's that happy medium in the middle that takes in all these new things that are moving on. And there's a less fear now about it.
And also, you're talking now about over exercising, but that's something also, I think, in the ballet world, and maybe in the music world also, is rest. You know, that rest is so important.
Mm. Yeah, it's, when you have a day off, have a day off. Go and see people, and hopefully you've got some friends outside of whatever training you're doing, whether it's music, singing, or dance. See people outside of that of the business. Get a reality about the world outside your own environment, and do rest. It's pointless saying it's a rest day, I'm going to go for a run. Well, you're not resting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I'm not doing ballet. No, but you're not resting. Don't you?
Yeah, yeah,
Listen.
yeah. Is it if difficult? You said about change and so on. So at the moment, is it for you difficult to get people to change their minds about the training, not just the dancers, because the dancers themselves really need to change their mindset as well, but changing the whole system of how they are trained?
This is the difficult part, because the real fixed mindsets are the artistic directors. If that will slowly change, because you're going to get new artistic directors that have come in that are learning the new ways, the new methods, but you still got the hierarchy, the top lot that are doing it in a very autocratic way and not listening. I don't care what you've got. I don't care your injuries. You've got to get on stage and perform. There's no empathy there at all. And there's no sympathy from the point of view from the artistic directors, but there's no empathy. I did this, and we're going back to what you're saying, Petra. I did this. I do these 2 performances a day, and I was injured at the time, and I got through it. Yeah, but look at you. You're limping now, aren't you?
Exactly. Yeah.
You're only 50, and look at you limping. You've had 2 hip replacements, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really true. It's if you think of it that way, but yeah. So steps, you say it's first I want to ask you, how did you decide to do this? I mean, was it because of your training, because of what you experienced as a dancer, that you thought you wanted to change things?
Well, if we go back, for whoever hasn't heard this before from me, we'll go back to age 6. I started dancing. I took to it straight away. I loved it. And I decided this is what I want to do. And this is what we're talking about, neurodiverse traits. This is what I want to do. And I'm so focused and driven. And at age 10, I got 5 one-year scholarships with the Royal Academy of Dance. And then age 16, I went to the Royal Ballet Upper School. And at I only did 2 and a bit years. So my bit year was in January of my graduation year. The artistic director of the Royal Ballet phoned up the school and asked them to release me to join the company.
Wow.
Yes, no audition.
Yeah, yeah.
And I spent 3 years there. And I then I joined London's Festival Ballet, which is now called English National Ballet. So I joined there as a soloist. I was doing soloist and principal roles. It was great. But I wanted to do more. And I think I was there for 3 years. I saw an advert for a UK tour of West Side Story. This is back in 1972. And I got it because Jerome Robbins, ballet. And so, I was pleased that I got that. And there are some on the internet. There are some photographs of the film of the dancers in the film doing a bar, holding onto railings.
I saw that.
Doing
I
a
saw
ballet.
that. Yeah.
Anyway, so I did. That was three months or something like that, a tour around the UK, and that took me to November. The company manager of Festival Ballet phoned up and said, "Oh, you've done your tour. We haven't replaced you. Would you come and do as a guest artist and do the Christmas season of Nutcracker?" So the Christmas season is 2 shows a day for 3 weeks, 6 days a week for 3 weeks.
Wow.
And I had 6 different roles to do in that, and not all in the same performance. And so I did all of those performances, and I thought, I don't want to do this again. It really drained me and knocked me out. And so I did West End musicals, film and TV after that. Did a bit of choreography, bit of teaching. And then I retired and set up a business management organization to look after people in show business. And I built that up and ran that for 15 years. And during the meeting, some of the meetings that I had with the clients, with the business management clients, they would start offloading their personal issues on, like you do in hairdressers. You're just talking to the mirror, the person. Where did you go on holiday? Oh, I did this. Oh, do you know, this terrible. My daughter is doing this and this. So you're offloading to someone because you're not getting necessarily any feedback, but you're able to do that. And this is what these clients, these performers and artistic directors and lighting designers used to do with me. And I thought, I have no idea what to do with this information. Anyway, so I thought I sold the business after 15 years. And then serendipity took over, and I opened this magazine, and there was an advert for a Jungian psychodynamic psychotherapy training. And I thought, thank you, universe. This is what I'm going to do next.
That's how it happens. Yeah.
That's how it happens, yes. And so then I trained as a psychotherapist for 7 years. I was just seeing the general population, and then a retired dancer came to see me because she'd heard about me. She'd just been discharged from a psychiatric unit with bipolar disorder, and treated her for 6 months. And I knew then that dancers need dancers who are therapists to understand. And now, when I get new clients, one of the first questions is, have you had previous therapy? So I want to put that in the history. And when they say yes, I say that, did that help? And invariably they say no, because they didn't understand what I was talking about. And a lot of the time, they would say, the GP or the therapist themselves said, you've got so much anxiety. Is performing really the career for you? And of course, a dancer or a performer doesn't want to hear that.
Exactly.
They want solutions.
Yeah.
And so not just the therapy, I do the visualizations, dream interpretations, and work through changing their mindset. So like in this country, the NHS, the National Health Service, their therapists would just deal with the symptoms or give them medication. But with psychotherapy, I work with the patient's unconscious. And the unconscious goes right back into in utero. What was happening with your mother at that time when she was pregnant with you? It goes that far back, and that's programmed into the unconscious. So what's happening in the here and now, any triggers that you have are all to do with the past. So that's what we need to look at, and that's what we look at in the therapy sessions. We work through what's happened in the past to trigger in the present. If a person feels safe, then that's not going to happen. So, the saber-toothed tiger is not coming along. If you've had your handbag stolen and you're walking down a similar street, you will get that feeling again. That's the trigger. Although you are safe, so you have to deal with those situations in a totally different way by releasing it. Then you won't get the triggers again.
But that's wonderful, that, and that dancers now can come to somebody that understand because you have the background.
And it's also nice to see the number of dancers that are going into training. There's 2 dancers, ex-dancers, and 1 teacher, RAD teacher, an examiner, who are going through training at the moment. Elmhurst and the Royal Ballet School has an Birmingham Royal Ballet dancer who then trained as a counsellor. So it's great that that's happening.
Mm. I also thought over lockdown, I thought that we don't really understand. We look at the art form, but we don't understand always. I don't know how to put it, but I'll explain it to you, and then you can maybe you'll be able to explain also then. Because in lockdown, I looked at my 2 children who are ballet dancers, and they were extremely frustrated. And even though they could do Zoom classes online, there was, this extreme frustration. And I also spoke to other artists like musicians and so on. And yes, there were a kind of a frustration, but they could carry on practicing, or they played repertoire that they've never played before. So for them, it was a type of freedom. But for some reason, I found for the dancers, it was so difficult. I mean, the dancers that I spoke to. And then I realized that dancers always are together. They're always, from their training at the ballet school, they are in a class or in a group. They train together, they stay together, during their training, very close together. It's usually small groups. And then they're in the studio always together, and they always have the space. The studios are always huge, and the space, yet they have always people around them. And suddenly when, they were stuck at home and between 4 walls, and there was no space and there were no people, then suddenly also these things came out, things that they talked about and things that they realized about themselves. And this is something that I thought about a lot, is the dancer and the connection with somebody else, how that works in the mind, because they always have somebody with them. They always have the support. When they dance in pas de deux, there's always the support, or, so what is your, or how can you explain this?
The majority of humans are gregarious.
Mm.
They like their tribe, their family. And to lose that, it's like losing a family. They've lost their support. And although they may have done phone calls or Zooms or FaceTimes or whatever's, they've lost that. They lost their family. Yes, they had their family at home. I saw over the couple of years of COVID, 1,000. I was doing 1,000 sessions a year, and that was difficult for them to be able to change a mindset. So for dancers, I was suggesting there's so much free classes of different styles. Why not try those different styles? Just to add a bit of fun to you, a bit of tap, a bit of whatever's that was going around. There were so many free classes. It was wonderful that teachers were doing all these free classes online, knowing that people couldn't go anywhere. And some of them were doing this, and in fact telling others, look, let's try this, let's try that. And so they would be in their family on the screen.
Oh, yeah.
Because they would all be there, watching. We've lost a generation there.
Mm.
With that. I mean, like the academic schools, they were lost. And to be, it's cabin fever as well, being at home all the time.
Yeah.
And you were right, the extremes did happen. That they started picking themselves apart because they were concentrating so much on themselves rather than the whole of a class, however many in a class, however many in rehearsals. And a lot of people dropped out. A lot of the professional dancers were 2 or 3 years away from retirement, retired, because they felt they couldn't go back into practice and get their body, because the body's knocked around a bit for many years, and it did a lot of damage to a lot of people. But it really boils down to, you're in a class at 6 years old with another 10 or so people.
Exactly, yeah.
And then you move along in that age group. Some of them drop out, and then you make a new family when you go up to the next level and the next level. And so a loss of family is
But this was why I thought about it. And because I spoke to other artists as well, I was thinking, I couldn't think of another art form where you are so connected with the same people in for such a long time in the same art form, So because musicians, they change, they go around the world, they're in different orchestras, yet dancers seem to be, and this is why the dance world is so small, really, if you in the matter of speaking, because they just know each other so well, because they just are together all the time,
Right.
or I'm not talking about over country, but I'm saying overall, they sort of stick together. And I was thinking, there's really no other art form that has that, where you train from that age together with people, staying in such close proximity in boarding school, then moving on to a company, being together with people. And I wonder how that in the mind also, helps you with change. Or if I just look at my daughter, when she transitioned, when she had to step out of the ballet world, was such a hard thing, and she had to go through so much to make that decision. And how many dancers are maybe unhappy where they are, but they just cannot see themselves stepping out of it because of this sort of hub that they are in. Do you know what I mean? This is
I do, yes. I do. And and I know your daughter because I did an interview with her on her podcast. The difficulties is not being able to transition. So every transition, it goes through a grieving process. So it just means, for example, you move house. So when you look at those in the armed forces, families in the armed forces that are moving all the time, the children have to transition because they've got to move with the family. So they're losing friends at school every time they move. They've got to make friends again. It changes their personality because it depends how their parents treat them and what environment when they change. So when you go, there's an excitement of change and there's a fear of change. It depends in which environment you grew up. What did your parents do? What did you see your parents do when they had to move, or when somebody had to change jobs, and you're watching all this and you're taking it all in? So when you look at every transition, especially for your daughter's example of going from that ballet family, that ballet identity, the self-identity of a ballet dancer, and going to this, so you're losing an identity. So you've got a double grieving process of moving jobs and also losing an identity. So I didn't realize, because part of my training as a psychotherapist, we had to do in our first year of training at least 40 weekly therapy sessions ourselves, so that we understand what goes on in there, but also to clear out issues. Well, I did 4 years of weekly therapy because I found it so helpful. And I didn't realize that every transition that I'd done up to the point of the training, I'd never dealt with any transition. I was holding on to that. And so there was this just grieving process of all the different stages in my life, the loss of identity of being a performer. And then through the different stages, every transition needs to be dealt with as a grieving process. It may be a small loss. It may be an exciting move. You can still call it a grieving process, but the excitement can then carry you on. What are you leaving behind? What's changed? Work through all of that to be able to understand your own feelings. Don't bury them, as I did, because it's explosive when it all comes out. So you just do it slowly in stages as you're going along throughout your life.
And I think, yeah, maybe it's also just getting on with it, and I think dancers are trained to just get on with it,
I just got on with it. And that's what I was trained to do. And that's what ballet teaches you to do.
Exactly.
You just get on with it. That's your next stage, right? Yeah. Move on, leave, and just forget about the rest. Well, you're not forgetting about the rest. You've got it in this great big rubbish sack or trash sack, whoever's listening. And it's on your back. And you're carrying it with you throughout your life unless you deal with every transition as a grieving process. And I'm not talking about grandma dying or anything like that. It's just a small move, a move of a house, changing jobs, anything like that.
I remember this is just an image that I always have in my head. Is I replanted a tree once in my garden. It wasn't it wasn't the huge tree. It was still a young tree, and I replanted it. And for a time, I thought the tree was dead. And my cousin came to visit, and she's a I don't know what you call it, but she has a nursery, like a garden center, and
a horticulturalist. A horticulturalist.
Yeah. And she, scraped the tree a little bit with her finger, and she said, "No, look, it's still green. The branch is still green. So the tree is still alive. It's just not blooming again. It's not blooming yet." And she said, "Give it a while. Replanting it takes a while for the tree to get the roots back in the soil again and get everything settled, and then it will bloom again." And I always think of that when I move or when things change or something. I think, okay, it's rerouting time. It's just getting your roots in the soil back again, and then everything will happen again and everything will bloom again.
And the other thing about transitions, especially out of the performing arts, is the fact that training of performing artists is such that there are so many transferable skills.
Absolutely.
To a new way. It's just amazing what we all learned.
I spoke to Joshua Tofia. I can't remember.
Tuifua.
Yes. And we talked about this, the transferable skills. And he also, from his career, said how he felt that is so important, that you, as a dancer, you have so many skills that you bring to any other field of work that you do afterwards.
Joshua's a lovely guy, very intelligent. He's one of our patrons in the charity. Yeah. So we've gathered together some really good people, and he reposts our posts. He's so much into mental health support for dancers. It's great.
But Terry, tell me, what is the big wish? What would you like to see, or what is the dream? What would you like to see happening with STEPS?
I'd like to see STEPS expand. So the three services at the moment are counselling, workshops, which is the education, and the mental health first aid. What we really need are sponsors, private donors, commercial donors, the companies, to be able to expand on that, and also to be able to give a free counselling to those that can't afford it. At the moment, all the counsellors and the psychotherapists that we're using have agreed to a low rate of £45 per session.
Oh, that's good.
And because I was talking to someone the other day who I know who is open enough to say that they have therapy or they've had therapy, and they're talking about £100 and £110 per session. I mean, I my normal charge is £70 a session. I just think, why are they paying? Why are they charging so much? Anyway, so we've come to a low level of £45 a session. So all four of us have agreed £45. There are a few of us that will do pro bono, but we do need funding to be able to allow, 6 sessions. We're saying 6 sessions free. So you work that out. And in that way, we will be able to help more people. But it's the funding. We're giving enough. We're giving our time to do this. We do need some help from the public. On our website, there is a donate button for Just Giving to do that. So if you're in the UK, we can get the gift aid added to that. That's an added tax that goes back to us, which is great. So that is my biggest wish at the moment, to have enough core funding and funding for the free counselling.
And the people who give donations, do they understand the importance of this work that you're doing?
There is a description on the basic description on the front page of the website is what we're doing. We are adding, because the launches of mental health first aid and the counselling is going to be mid-February.
Okay.
And there's going to be more explanations of what we're doing. But I mean, if people want to look at my own website, which is counsellingfordancers.com, there's the full descriptions of what I do.
Okay.
But the charity is going to be doing the same thing.
Terry, it's so great to talk to you again. I absolutely admire you so much for the work that you're doing. I think it's so great, that you're doing this. I can just think of my own children who went through the whole system of, and even, I think as long as there's somebody that understands what even the children at the young age are going through, that the training is not easy on them. And although it's a wonderful career and a beautiful career, and I must say, there's so many wonderful things that happen to them at the Royal Ballet School in their training, and they've gained so much from having that experience. I do think, the work that you're doing is so important, and that there can still be change and another way of approaching training for these dancers, for them to, I think, also be the artists that they are supposed to be, rather than just trying to be dancers.
Quite so. And thank you for what you said about what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely.